Hoang, if we can begin by identifying your name and when and where you were born.
My name is Hoang Thai. That is an American order. In Vietnamese order, it will be Thai Van Hoang. I was born in 1939, September 24th, 1939, and in a small city of the center of Vietnam, called Quang Tri, and this is a very famous name during the war.
Yes. What was your early childhood like?
My early childhood, I was born in a middle class family. It was a cozy, very well taken care of by my parents, to whom I'm very grateful. I was living under the colonial period. I felt that I was living a peaceful life.
This is the French colonial period of Vietnam. Did you go to a French school or to a Vietnamese school?
I first started with a Vietnamese school, and then when we transferred to a secondary level, my parents sent me to a French school. That is actually, we are very open to culture, and one of the access to culture is language. Yes, that is where the French language was taught better.
Well, I know the French do a very good job because, as you know, my mother went to French school in China. During the colonial period, was there a lot, within being a Vietnamese in Vietnam, the colonial period, was there a lot of French influence around you?
It was, yeah, French culture, class. Yeah, people. That is French. The French environment was a kind of high class society by that time.
I realize you're very young at this time, but did you feel any? How did the French treat the Vietnamese people around you?
I didn't see really, and honestly, I didn't see any kind of cruelty. As long as we stay in the boundaries, legal boundaries. Yes, sure, but by that time I was still too young to be aware of the other concerns, nationalist concerns, or other activities. But as long as I can remember, its life was peaceful.
Okay. Now, what was your higher education like? You went from high school. Did you go into college?
Yes, I went through on the cycles, educational cycle that the country had available by that time. I completed my primary education, and well, remember that every cycle back then you have to pass for national examination. So we have to pass the primary diploma, we have to pass a secondary, first junior secondary examination, and then the high school, the senior cycle examination. And I went through, I think that we all, as a citizen, as scholars, we are very, very penetrated by the Confucianism philosophy.
I see.
That is education, but is a place in the first place. So yeah, it's a duty for every citizen to go through the education.
Once you finished with high school, what options did you have? Did your parents require you to become a doctor or a lawyer? Or did you have some choice in terms of what you could do next?
We have a choice in terms of orientation, but we will be pressured very hardly to to go through college. Yeah. But in college, once you enter college, the parents let you choose the branch, the field that you feel you have an interest into it. Sure, they will always suggest if you could go through the make yourself a doctor, a lawyer, right. But that is not a requirement.
So what did you choose to do?
I chose the education to be a teacher. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So once you got through school, through college, did you then go on to become a teacher?
Yes, I became a teacher. I taught the French language and French literature at the senior high school.
That must have been an exciting time for you. That sounds interesting.
Yes, I love it. Mm-hmm.
Now, the situation in Vietnam changed around this period of time. Is that correct? How many years were you a teacher before the war broke out?
I embarked in the teaching career in 1963. Actually, by that time, the Vietnam War, what we call the Vietnam War, had started. Because started, but at a level still low level. Mm-hmm. It's completely a guerrilla war. Mm-hmm. But in general, the government and the army have a very good, very solid control. Mm-hmm. In terms of geography and politics as well. Yeah.
Well, let's go back then, because I want to talk about the World War II, the Japanese occupation. You lived through that as well.
That's correct.
Forgive me, how old were you approximately when?
I was 6 years old.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right, so you wouldn't have really known.
I remember.
Oh, well,
yes.
Please tell us about that.
Yes, I remember. Back that time, we were living in Quang Tri. Yes, that is north of the former capital, Hue. And I remember, I was around 6 years old, that is correct, but I remember that we were under attack by the American airplanes, but not everywhere. This is most of the time the bridges were attacked. And for one time, I have heard the rumors in the city saying that, oh, the Japanese shut down an airplane on the bridge, and we all come up to that bridge. But I didn't see any plane. Okay. Yeah.
The Japanese occupation, was their presence there in the city? Did you actually see the Japanese soldiers with guns and?
Yes, they are very moving. They were very moving units. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw them coming in and out every day. And because every time they come in and out, they kept chanting, singing all the time. Mm-hmm.
I know the brutality of the Japanese army throughout Asia. Did you see any evidence of that? Did your parents warn you to be careful not to talk to them, or was there anything like that?
Not when I was a child, not in my childhood, not when I confront the Japanese. Actually, I just remember them as a soldier, as any other soldiers. But then that is because of my age. But I know that by that time, my parents was aware differently. Because by the time the Japanese have some kind of malicious policy that causes the famine, very spreading famine all over the north. Yeah, and millions died because of that.
Yeah. Now, when you got out of college, the French occupation was about to end. Is that correct? Is it the period of time of Dien Bien Phu was 1954? So were you still in college during that period? Because you said 63 you started teaching. Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay. Actually, the French, the influence and the presence of the French government started fading around 1954. There is some kind of remnants of their presence in the army, in the government, but that was fading 2 years later. So I think around 1956 they kind of withdrawing. They are kind of withdrawing toward the capital, that is in Saigon.
Okay. We know from history that there was a feeling amongst the Vietnamese people that at the end of World War II, they would have their own independence. Were you aware of this at all? I mean, I know you know that now, but were you aware of this at all when you were there?
Actually, that is a very confusing period.
Okay.
We have different movements of the nationalist parties. One of them were the Communist Party under Ho Chi Minh. They were fighting for the independence, but their force, because they were fighting by themselves, for themselves, without any help, any support, financial support, ammunition support, without any of these things for them, except the Communist Party under Ho Chi Minh. He got help from Russia, he got help from China, and that's why he finally took advantage of the strength and eradicate on the other parties.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's cruel, it's a brutal, and it's a bloody eradication.
Yeah. So let's place ourselves now. You are now teaching in a high school, and what was your first indication that there was the rumblings of war around you?
Just a little bit before I started teaching.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a little bit before. I graduated in 1963, and the college organized a trip from Hue to Highland City, Đà Lạt. And during the trip, there was no incidents of attack like that, but we were warned by the administration, I mean the school administration, that we got to be careful to don't jump out of the train. Be careful if such attack happen, it could be possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that the pre-war, the precursor sign of the war already started when I just graduated from teacher training college.
Now, you're an educated man, so you had access to newspapers, not only Vietnamese newspapers, but French newspapers as well. Was there also radio? You could hear from radio?
Yes, yes.
So what were you learning about the coming civil war at this time? Were you getting any indications, besides just the administrators talking to you or warning you on your trip, but was there any indications from the newspapers or from the radio of things going on in Vietnam?
Yes, there's a radio, national radio. We listen to the VOA, we listen to the BBC. We combine all the information, and sure, I have a pre-feeling that the war is going to happen, because actually the city where I was first assigned to teach was a city taken away from the communists. Yes, and in that city, I start seeing that I have heard, I never seen it, but they say that in that city is because it's a recuperate the city from the communist zone. So they have before leaving for the north, they have had a post. They are communists all over, and I say, well, I know that if that is true, they are going to start another war.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that I've met have no idea what it's like to live in a city that is under siege. I grew up with soldiers in the streets with guns. Describe to us, for example, you're going to school. What did you see around you? Were there guards? Were there military personnel in the streets? Were there evidence of military presence?
You mean the military presence
In the
of
city
the national?
itself, yes, when you were going to teach, and you're going through the streets to go to school to teach. What did you see around you? Was there a military presence in the city that you were in?
It's a very, very moderate the presence of the army. Most of the time, back then the life was just like any other city. We have a business, we have a church, we have Buddhist temples. Every activity was normal, except that sure compared to an American city, we have more of the militaries because militaries, we don't see the militaries and the civilians as a separate things, because behind every military we see their families, our friends, their children going to school. So we don't have some kind of allergy to seeing the military presence.
Yeah, I guess it's what I was trying to get at was that if you go to an American city, there is almost no presence whatsoever. And you may go to a place like San Diego where there are military bases. When you go around the base, you'll see the soldiers. But I guess the part that I was talking about is that the military was a part of the everyday activities as opposed to being somewhat separate from it.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
okay,
correct.
okay.
Actually, it's more than just a part of the everyday activity. It's a reassuring factor for our society, because we always live under the threat that the communists are going to do something. Yeah.
I think that's a very important point, because even in our day now, where we are threatened from the outside, it's not the same feeling that you went through, and I certainly have gone through as well.
I see.
Things got worse over time. You being able to not only understand French and Vietnamese, but also English, and having access to the British broadcasting, did you notice that it happened quickly, or was it a very gradual as the war started to increase?
It's very gradual, at least gradual until 1965.
Okay.
Yes. After 1965, so things you see, were taken place by hips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was your personal experience from 63 to 65? We know that there's a gradual, you're hearing things, you're reading things and whatnot, but what was your actual social life like during that period? Did you get married? Did you have children?
Yes, I got married in 1963. That is just at the beginning of becoming a teacher. I want to build a family, so that because in our culture, being a teacher is also being a model. Yeah, that is very important. The teacher will serve as a model for the youngsters. Yeah, so I say the first thing is this is from the suggestion of my parents or from myself. Somehow it comes up that I say, well, I have to build a family, because if I'm teaching and some youngster student engage sentimentally engage with me, that is a bad model.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Confucian society, of course, the teacher is revered. He or she is considered, as you say, a model. So you met someone, you got married, and in 1965, where were you living?
In 1965, I was transferred into Saigon to serve as a educational specialist. My function was to develop scheme of and distribution and the building of schools throughout the country. We call it by that time the project was called school mapping.
Okay. This had to be very exciting for a teacher to not only teach in a class, that's one thing, but to be involved in the education of entire Vietnam.
Yes.
It must have been very, very proud for you, for your parents.
For myself, I feel very, very grateful. Yeah. I feel some kind of ideal that I can do something for my youngsters, citizens.
Saigon, compared to where you came from, had to be somewhat of a shock. I mean, this is a metropolitan city. This is a huge international city. What was your first impressions when you arrived in Saigon?
Physically speaking, it's kind of a lot more hardships than living in the city, smaller city. Traffic, by that time, everything at the peak level, traffic was very, very jam. Hard business got a lot more intense. But the family, our family, provide support for any challenge that we have to face in society. That is a very important thing.
Now, did your parents come with you?
Actually, my parents was transferred into Saigon years way before me. Mm-hmm. That's why, yeah.
So this
that helps too.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that changes everything, because you're actually moving into an environment now where you're going to be with your parents and you have your own family there, so there is that support group there.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
What was your first, let's just put it this way, what was your first day on the job like when you walk into the building and now you're the new person, right? You're the new person.
I was happy, I was proud, and this is great. This is great because this is just like you stay on the mountain, on the higher place, and you look down. You have a panoramic view of everything. That's when I start my job. I say I was filled with confidence.
Now, the building that you worked in, was this a high-rise, or it was a couple stories, or what was the building itself?
It's one story. Yeah, it's a one-story building. Very simple, very humble, but inside of that building, it's a kind of vivid, dynamic life, dynamic activities. Yes.
Did you
we worked without any restriction in terms of time, in terms of energy, really.
Did you have an office, or did you work in an area with a whole bunch of people in it? I mean, describe that for us.
We have a big, actually an open space. My table, my desk was in the center of a wall, and all around me were all my colleagues. Yeah, very close, very close.
So, am I to understand you're hearing the sounds of typewriters going off and people talking? It must have been a bustling kind of environment.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
But also that, in terms of communication, it's a kind of a compromise. Yeah. If you accept some kind of level of noise, but in terms of communication, it's very effective. You see, we look at our club, we call, okay, could you come and help me with this? Sometimes you even don't need to move out and to spend time by moving.
Now let's get an idea of your day. You arrive at the office in the morning. You sit down at your desk. You have certain projects that you have to get accomplished that day, or perhaps for the next week or something. Did you get lunch breaks, or did you get a chance to take a break or anything?
Yeah, the time, the daytime is structured differently from here. We start work from 8 until noon, and then we got home for 2 hours, for lunch, for siesta. Actually, in Saigon, the siesta is the one that recuperate all your energy for the next cycle. And then we come in at 2 and we work until 6 p.m. Right.
Okay, okay, very good. At the point in 65, you're part of this dynamic group of people. You feel like you're part of the future of Vietnam. What happened next?
What happened next is we start feeling the trouble, the disturbance of the taking over of the administration by the military. I should say that. And I know that we always, as a people, as a citizen, we always want a civilian government, but somehow, because I think there's something to do with the pressure from the United States government. So somehow, despite all the aspiration of the people to have a deserving civilian government, somehow we still always end up in with the militaries. And in the militaries, there were a kind of division. They have a group, or they have a connection, and somehow they are conflicting. So that is the start of the deterioration of the situation, and that end up in 1975.
Now, in 65, had the American presence already been known? Did you personally see Americans now, or was there a period of slow transition, or just suddenly there were Americans in Saigon?
Starting with 1965, the presence were still moderate. But then it increased very remarkably, very substantially after that. And at some point, you feel that sometimes we feel got emerged by the presence and because of the clash of the culture. Our culture is a kind of more oriented toward the inside. Mm-hmm. Here, you come from the Western culture. People are kind of more oriented toward the outside. I mean, so with that, the emergence of the bars, of the clubs, and then there's a disturbance in terms of everywhere. The communication, the taxi, we don't have enough taxi. We don't have enough other transportation means like roads. We don't have enough. So we feel some kind of the overload. Mm-hmm.
During this period, 65, did you stay in Saigon exclusively, or did you travel outside? Did you go anywhere?
Most of the time, I stay in Saigon, except when we have to go out for a field observation. So then we all seminars. Yes, that's when we have to go out sometime to surrounding cities, to schools of the other cities farther in the south, way in the fourth region, or in the center. Yes, we have to go out.
So during these field trips, was there any evidence personally of the war or any of the battles or anything like that? Or did you feel fairly safe when you went out to these areas?
I still feel protected. Around 65, even up to 68, I feel protected. I feel that it's safe. But we have to ask: is that safe? We have to ask the local administration, the local military responsibility, whether it's safe to go to that district, to go to that village. And we act by their instruction. But overall, I never believed that that in 1975, with the fall of Saigon, could happen.
You had access, as we said earlier, to French, British, now American newspapers. I don't know if you read the Stars and Stripes or anything like that. Did you have access to that? So you knew that things were happening in Vietnam, though?
Yes.
Okay, but you still felt this sense of safety within Saigon?
Yes.
1968, something happened to shatter that confidence. If you could tell us about that, please.
It's a completely surprise as a civilian. A surprise to me. I know that it's going to have a heavy consequence on the world. If we were fighting by ourselves, by our ideology, by our philosophy of the world, because we always, when we have to deal with the communism, it is a guerrilla. Guerrilla is the backbone of the Vietnam War, and we know it, we accept it. By saying that we accept it, we are saying that the enemy could be the next guy to myself, but not because he's a next side that he can take over my family, he can take over my government, because the guerrilla war, that is the way it is. But that is our vision of the world. But the American government in Washington feel some kind of weakness, complete weakness, when they see that, oh, the guerrilla is right in the center of Saigon. That's create an emotion, completely a striking emotion feeling on the American people, the government, American government, and that's from that point, everything was a view, was a judge, was a act on that vision. Not therefore that is fighting the guerrilla war, but people were not thinking in terms of guerrilla in their mind.
When people talk about the Tet Offensive here in our history books, it is the actual battle. But Tet actually is a celebration period. If you could give us some background of, as you said you were surprised, if you could give us some background of the celebration and what happened during the period of time we now know as Tet.
Every family will have a little bit of a difference in terms of celebration, how big it is, how late it is. My family, by the time we stayed over very late, past 2 a.m., we still was with our relatives, and also sudden. As I got home around 2 a.m., I heard an explosion and smoke all over. I said, what happened? I thought that maybe another military coup, something like that. Yeah, and after that, in the morning, I learned that is the communist attack.
Now, you were aware that during the celebration of Tet that there was a truce. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so really you believed that there would be a peaceful time.
Everybody believes that they respect the truth, because it has been that way for years. Since 1960, 63 up to 68, for 5 years. They respect it, we respect it. But when they change, that is what the surprise. We was completely caught by the surprise. Not only us, but all over the world, mostly the American people and government.
The next morning, did you go to work?
I did. There's not much surprise, but that is the way of life. You see, guerrilla war. You see, they can attack us at any time. We can attack them at any time. That is just like under boxing. If you give a punch, the other guy can give you a punch. The way is how you bear it. Yeah, and I went to my work just like any other days. I feel all of us. We talk a little bit about that, and somehow we feel that we will work more effectively. Each one in their responsibility try to put in more things in order to help this general situation.
When you see images on television or in historical documentaries about the Tet Offensive, it's all soldiers shooting and buildings blowing up and things like that. What was your personal experience with the Tet within Saigon?
It's I live that scene. Actually, I live it. The bullets exchanger cover everywhere. Why? Because the communists, they started spreading inside each families, and they use some kind of local explosion. They destroy. They make with that explosion. They made the holes within in the walls, and then they move the tree through these walls from house to house to house like that. So they start mixing with the population. That is their tactics of guerrilla war. And that's why there's no frontier, there are no borders. That wherever they are, there will be a battle, and there will be exchange of shooting.
For those of us that were not there, it's very important, I think, to see the scene through your eyes. The Tet Offensive lasted over a period of time. In the past, before the attack, you would, as you say, get up in the morning, you would go to work, and you would come back for lunch, take a siesta. How did that change during the Tet battle? How did your daily routine change?
It changed, yes. I should say that it changed. It's distracted a little bit. Sure, we are ready. All the people who have had lived through the war, they are getting more and more dynamic. They adapt to the change very, very quickly. Yeah, it wouldn't be any problem. It wouldn't be of much of the stress because we accept it. We visualize things that way, so we are ready.
But what was your personal experience, though? I mean, did you see actual fighting in the street? Did you hear explosions? I mean, what was during the battle, during the actual battle we're talking about?
Yes. I saw the just in some cases, you see the soldiers are just in front of me, just a few steps. I follow them. Yeah, I just feel that I am interested. That's my duty to be with them, to be in the war. I cannot live in peace while the whole city was in war. So in all these cases, I just come out, everybody by themselves. That is a voluntary behavior. Come out, help the soldiers, help whatsoever to show that here is the communist. Yeah, he just go into that house. Yeah, any help that we can do. Yeah.
Okay. Were you in any personal danger?
Oh sure, yes. Once I was lucky. Once in another battle, by moving from one city to city as a teacher, I was stopped by a unit of guerrilla, and somehow I just say, well, I'm just a student. I'm coming here to find out a job for you. You have to have a strategy to save your life, and honestly, somehow they touch my thigh. They touch it right, and they say, get out. And I say, well, if I get out, I will die. If I stay here, I will die. They will shoot me. So the same thing. So why not to try to stay in the car? And they say, get out, get out. And I could keep saying, no, I'm just a student. I'm just a student trying to go in this city for a job, for a living. And after a while, saying back and forth, they let me go like that. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
brave, sir.
But one of my colleagues died during the test. Maybe he never come back. Maybe because of that trip around, and they stopped by the units. Later we found that he died because we get his ID card, and he never came back.
The Tet Offensive eventually ended. The Americans were able to come in. The Vietnamese army and the Vietnamese forces were able to force the Viet Cong out. What was the aftermath of the battle like for you?
The aftermath, very quickly, as far as I can remember, life returned to normal. But the concern, the worries set in because the common people out there, they think differently than us, because they say, okay, that's it. This attack is just like any other one from the communists. But us, we look into the situation, we follow the reaction from Washington. We know that it's going to be, we are going to be doomed, because it looks like that this battle create a adverse reaction from the people, from mostly the peace activists. They are the most damaging force to our fight for the democracy.
I think it's interesting that you are very unique in the fact that since you could read English, whereas maybe some of your colleagues could only read French or only read Vietnamese, you could read English as well. Did you have access to American papers? In other words, did you have access to the American point of view that was coming from the United States?
Yes. It depends. If you focus on it, you will get it. And our group, almost everybody who has some kind of concern on the fate of the South Vietnam, besides listening to what our government was saying or to what the other newspaper were saying, we wanted to make a pioneering step into the other borders, into the other boundaries. That is why we very closely follow the thinking, the change of the thinking of our strategy in the United States. And we feel that, you see, every day with our worries, our concern keep spreading, and it's doomed. We have this sentiment that it's somehow we are doomed. And finally that sentiment come into reality with the Congress. While in our fighting, we need ammunition. We need ammunition very desperately. We need it. But Congress made a decision, a vote, to cut the 300 million for the ammunition. So I say, so that's it.
I know this is a very difficult period in your life, but I think it's important that the public knows your own experience. You felt doomed. When did the actual doomed reality happen? Did they enter into the city of Saigon? The communists entered the city of Saigon? You were there?
Yes, I was there. It's a shock. It's such a tragedy beyond words. I saw that they were not human. They came into Saigon with tanks, and they drove like a enraged human being, and they force really they force everywhere. They force, if let's say you have a gate into we call it the Independence Palace. That is where our president reside and work. So he through a gate they just drove the tank past it and just crash everything down like that. It's occupation. This occupation, if you look into the history of occupation, I have seen none more brutal, more kind of arrogant than that one.
Your father and mother are still alive at this time?
Both.
You have a family. What was your personal concern knowing that the communists are actually in the city now?
Sure, very, very concerned. We know the communists. They are true communists. They are fanatic. They are very indoctrinated. They say they just have one thing, is all the people in the South are their enemies. We scared, but what can you do? You just wait for the fate to come to you. If somehow they didn't kill you, thanks God. If they kill you, that is expected. Actually, the Pol Pot in Cambodia and the Vietnamese communists, they have a different policy. In Pol Pot, they kill millions. Here they don't kill, but they put everybody in prison. That's the difference. And sometimes in some case, dying is better than living. In this case, because I was separated from my family that I never expected, with 4 small children, 3-year-old, and my wife never worked, but they took you away from family for months and months. I think for months and months, you never learn of anything, of any news from them. So I say, in this case, maybe they give me a shot is better than treated people, 100,000 in the prison like that, and will be treated the same way. And that is from the sentimental aspect. Here in the prison, it's not the prison. Communist prison is not like any other prison. First, we lay down on the floor, on the cold floor, hard concrete floor. And then the more important things, you see, they try to destroy the human feeling. They try to destroy the spiritual life as well. Let's say that in this case of distress, we need to look into God, and we need to look into Buddha. But this is what they say. What you have to do here, you don't pray. You don't pray. Praying is not going to help you to learning the new policies, the new ideology. You just learn. And actually, they prohibit anybody to celebrate any kind of worship.
Let's go back to you said something I thought very, very profound. You said you wait till fate comes to you. Mm-hmm. When did fate come to your family? What happened? Were you at your home? Were you in your office? Were you with your parents? Were you with your family when the communists came to your door?
There are two events that struck me. The first is all of a sudden, overnight, somehow they, maybe because of the cruelty, they got control very easily of people. They all of a sudden, overnight, I saw the students. They are not communists. They are not the supporter of the communists. But somehow by fear, So they volunteer to do whatever. You see, all of a sudden, from a village, from a district, one guy, a kind of illiterate guy, whoever, jump out and say, I'm a communist. I'm responsible for this area. No, you come out, you help me with it, you help me. So he ordered. And all the students or whoever will listen to him like a God. Yeah, because if you don't, you will never know what happened to you. So all of a sudden the students went out and went to each family, and they say, just like a cultural revolution in China, they confiscate all the books. No, these books are from the depraving the South government. They confiscate on. That's the first thing I say. That's it. So maybe the next step is it should be worse than that. And the next step is we got they didn't go to each family to pass the order. They have the order on the newspaper, and they say every one of you will get everyone who had a cooperate with the South Vietnamese government, from the chief of the chief of the office or officer in the army, officer, all have to report to specify location, and from that point we were taken away from our family without any reading any saying goodbye at all. That's it.
So you didn't know what the fate of your father and mother was? You didn't know what the fate of your children, of your wife?
No.
You were just you were taken by yourself, and they were taken. You don't know until much later, obviously you found out, but they were taken away from you.
That was correct. And correct for every one of us. And in my case, because I was a teacher, so they released me a year later, and they placed me under house arrest, a kind of surveillance. There's always a local security agent. He watch on you. He watch on you just like a tic-tac of a clock. The other one, they spend more times of internment.
Mm-hmm. I have found that a lot of people I come in contact with don't really fully understand how the communist system works on a ground level. And you were just mentioning that there was somebody responsible for looking out for you and looking out for the others to make sure that you don't do anything that's not in the communist line. And I think it's hard for Americans to think, as they walk out to go to the suburban mall or whatever like that there is actually countries where somebody is watching you.
It is. Every communist country is just like that. Yeah.
I realize this is very, very difficult to bring back in terms of your memory, but for us to understand visually, when you were taken away from your family, you were told to report to an area, right, a designated area. Mm-hmm. What are we talking about in terms of numbers? Were there 3 or 4 of you? Were there hundreds? I mean, your particular experience, what were you asked to do?
We actually, they use tricks everywhere. They use tricks everywhere. I couldn't believe it. That is a government who uses tricks for governing. Yeah, they have a notice saying that, so okay, every one of you will have to go to for a re-education to learn about the new policy, about our new government ideology. So take with you 30 days of food, of medication, 30 days. They say specify 30 days. Later, we know that 30 days is a kind of a trick to get 100% of people into the concentration camp, because somehow when we look at that, we say, oh, everybody believes that, oh, we just go for 30 days for a re-education, so let's go. Every one of us. So finally, inside they have a very famous statement. But that is the way the communists is. They say, okay, right now, you don't think of your family, don't think about anything, you see, just concentrate on the education, on the training here. Think about this, to be positive, think about this. If you are not released today, you will be released tomorrow. If you are not released tomorrow, you will be released one day. One of these days.
Yeah. That gives you hope each day that you're going to get out.
That gives you hope each day. Will give you hope, and I don't know. That is the way they impose the truth. The communist truth is just that when I say this is a black, believe it is a black, although it is a white. See, that's the truth. You can create the truth.
Let's get into some detail. You have now received this notice. You're told that you're only going to be gone for 30 days. So your wife and you, I take it, prepare some food and get some things ready for you to take. Your wife is, of course, very, very concerned for you. Your children are concerned. But 30 days, education, you'll be back. And so you leave. And you go to this area where they are all gathering. Were there people you knew from your administration or other teachers? Did you know people when you arrived, or they were all strangers to you?
No, we know. Yeah, okay. We know, because they criteria of the gathering is let's say the army will go with the army. The administration will go with them, so that when we went into it, we see our friends, our colleagues. Yes, we in the location of concentration camp where I went. There was at least 1,500 people. Okay.
So you arrive. They're all men, right? Because the women were separated.
No.
Oh.
They internate the men and women. They don't give that kind of luxury. They don't care about that kind of luxury, men and women. See?
So let's get an idea visually of the place that you were at, this concentration camp. I mean, we think of barbed wire. We think, what did you actually see? What was this concentration camp as you came in?
As we came in, it was buildings used formerly for the orphans, called the Hoang Thai orphanage. It looks like any other orphanage. It's just you have a range of buildings. I think there was 10 or 12 of them. Nothing around. But then later, a few months later, sure, we were forced to labor. Yeah, forced labor. So a month later, they start, okay, now they're distributing tools and hoes and rake, everything. So every day we have to go out to dig foundation to build more buildings. And then later, all of a sudden, one day, another project. They set up a wall, a concrete wall all around it. I say, you see, it's clear now. And on top of that concrete wall, that is a barbed wire. I say so. Yeah. Be focused on the fact that this is a prison, and the prison will have its term. And don't think about family anymore, see, because that will kill you. Yeah.
No communication, no newspapers, no radio, no way of knowing what's going on outside.
Nothing, no letters, no exchange of notes with anybody outside, except for there's a newspaper, but from the communist newspaper. Yes.
I'm curious to know some of the stories that you read in the communist newspaper? What were they telling you?
On the good things. You see, on the good things. Every day they say that, okay, the targets for production is 100% over the criteria. Good production. This is a success of the crops. You see, this is a success of digging a new canal. This is all over. You have a success and slogan everywhere. You see, that's see. Yeah. And actually, I have still it's harder to believe that people can lie at such a degree. Later, I had a very rare chance through my colleague to have access to a general, communist general. He was among the first one to engage in the communist ranks. His name is Huyen Van Nghe. And having access to him, and I just listening because I have to hide my origin. I just come in, just smile, just shaking hand with like their own colleague, you see. And I stay there, and I heard that they exchanged one of his, I think, son-in-law, yes, talking about the newspaper that I read once in the prison. He said, well, the fact is this, you see, if the first time you saying about one thing that didn't exist, you say first thing, people don't believe it. You say it a second thing, so people start feeling shaky. And if you keep saying the third thing, the fourth time, the third time, the fourth time, keep saying it, and people will believe that it is true.
You had mentioned earlier that you were given 30 days of food supplies that you and your wife put together. What happened when you got to the camp? Is that what you lived off of?
Yes, yeah, sure. That is our food. But then they provide their bare bone food as well, just rice. Oh, the food they provided, it's I think, if you have a pet here, food for pets here, our food in the prison is 100 times less than that. Yeah, for every meal, we have one bowl, maybe a little bit more than 1 cup of rice, and the soup. They call it soup, but water with a vegetable, and maybe one piece, small like this, of meat. That's it.
Yeah. So you have a daily routine of communist indoctrination. Then you go out and you do some kind of work. Mm-hmm. What was your day consist of from morning until night? You get up at what time, and what time did you actually get a chance to go to sleep?
6 a.m. Usually we got up at 6 a.m. and then we have to go to the kitchen to have our ration, daily ration. It's nothing, just rice. And then after a few months, everybody were falling sick. Yeah, were falling sick. So some kind of all of a sudden I feel the swelling all around the body, and with the starting of that swelling, we ate like a crazy. Just rice, but we feel, oh, that's good. It's good. It sounds like no food is better than rice. We keep eating whatsoever. If we can, endlessly. We look for eating. We dig in the ground to find out whether there's some kind of piece of potatoes. We go and try to gather any vegetable, any kind of grass out there, eating. And after that, and then also one day we got up and we don't feel any urge for eating at all. And then that is when we feel that we feel sick with the what they call that, the some kind of disease.
Yeah.
Due to the lack of food.
Was there any medical supplies or any kind of medical treatment for you?
No, formally, officially no, but we help each other, you see, because we know each other, we share by the same career, share by the same faith. We all are in the same boat, so we are very open to helping. So for one time, I almost died because of diarrhea. I almost died. I have 3 days of diarrhea with blood, and at one night I went out by myself and came back, and I collapsed. I couldn't get up anymore, and I know, okay, so I'm going to die here. All of a sudden, a friend of mine, somehow he has a few pills of antibiotics, and he gave it to me, and he saved my life. Yes.
What is his name?
Thor. Right now he's living in Canada. He saved my life.
During this period of time, the lack of food, the forced work, the indoctrinations that they continually gave you, what happened next? Because you are here now, thank goodness.
Thanks goodness.
What happened next? What was the major change that happened that allowed you to finally get out of prison?
When I was released and under surveillance, so they pressed me to go to the, they call the economic zone. Actually, if you went to this area, you will die. Or malaria, or whatsoever, other things. So they press us to go to the new economic zone. I say, well, I have to think of another way to organize my life. And then I started, I'm going to die. So I start to get bold, emboldened. I say, I don't care. If they took me into prison, that's fine. But or I will die, or I will try to find out a way for life. And I opt for the second one. I will try my best to find out a way for life. Then I start to contact friends, contact people for the source of information where I can go for both. Because by that time, both the people have started. Before that, the people keep coming out. Even if they die under the shots of the security agent whatsoever, they you see, they keep down everything just to force ahead for their future. So I was lucky. Many people, I know that many people die in the ocean. Yeah. Many people die under the shots of the communists. But I'm the one that with my family, we escaped.
Well, let's go back now. First of all, you're in the concentration camp, and tell us what happened in terms of, did somebody come to your door and say, okay, you group are going to leave now, or just you are going to leave now? What actually happened on the day you actually left the concentration camp?
Yes, it's everything. They have everybody in the communist structure. It looks to me like everybody has their own power. All of a sudden, one day I saw coming into our group an agent, secret agent. And he said, okay, you all come in here, sit down. I just sit down on the floor, and he starts talking. Okay, today I have some news. These are people that I'm going to read the name here who will follow me, to go with me. So among these names were mine. So I later follow him, and then when they started, you see, when they start another phase, then they give you, they change. They change. There's a note that the attitude is linked to each moment. So they change. They starting talking a little bit softer to you. they give you a bowl of rice with better food. I say, oh, this is a good sign. And they say, okay, all of you, because you have complete a good education here, so you are going to be sent back to your family.
So when you were released, would you go as a group onto a bus or a truck, or how did you get back to your family?
They provide the transportation to the city, and from the city to our home, we just walked home.
Now, when you went into the concentration camp, you had been eating well, and you had a wife that prepared meals for you, but for that year period, you were living in malnutrition, you were living in very bad conditions. When you got home, was your wife there?
She was there with all my children, and my wife was still there. Yeah, luckily.
Please, for your own family's sake, tell us what that moment was like when you arrived at the door and there is your wife and there is your children.
This is again, this is a gift from God, from on high, because once that you get involved with communism, you will never know what would be next for your fate. So when that is my second life. That is, I could not, you see, speechless. What I'm going to describe as the moment of return is a sacred. It's a sacred. It's a very valuable, and that is one of the things. That is after the marriage, the second event that enforce our bond is the return from prison.
She takes a look at you. Did you embrace? Did you hug? Did you embrace?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, we embrace her. Her reaction, yes, that is the center of the family. Her reaction, and for sure why we wanted to evaporate in each other, evaporate like that. And all of a sudden she took my hand, and and both of us to go to next is to our parents. So that's the family. The family. All of a sudden, she by herself, she took my hand, and she took me to my parents with all my children, just to celebrate the joy of the return. And always the family is not just us, but everybody. Yeah.
The reaction of your family obviously was one. Did they even know you were coming?
They know.
Okay.
Yeah, they know, because before that she told me that not a clear cut, but they say that one day the security agent stopped by and say, okay, maybe very soon I have got news from the camp that your husband is learning, he's learning well, so maybe prepare for him to be one day back here.
So even though you didn't know whether your whole family was alive or dead, they knew you were alive. Is that correct?
No,
oh.
No. Until that last minute, that somebody stopped by and saying, "Oh, your husband has been learning so far, learning so well." Yes.
So they've been living a whole year not knowing whether you were dead or not.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
That is
yes.
horrible. Mm-hmm. So once you got back, you're reunited with your family, you're reunited with your parents. What was your job, if you will? What were you supposed to do under the communist regime? You're under house arrest, basically, right? You have to. But did they have you working somewheres? I mean, what were you doing?
Actually, the everything after that, after the occupation, the fall of Saigon, everything that could be called a benefits will be based on your resume, on the background. Even my children, well, if ever they got some benefits from the new government, it should be based on their background, ensure that because they are children of a prisoner, so sure that they are at very end of the line whenever there's some benefits to enjoy. When I say benefits, that include education as well. Yes.
So were your kids going to school?
Going to school, by that time they were at the elementary and junior school. Yes, they did. But when I say of future, that is when you have to pass an examination, national examination, and when into college, that privilege will be never reserved to anybody who has a connection with the former South Vietnam official.
Yeah. How did you find out about the boat people, the people that were so desperate that they would risk their lives?
Actually, that it was also through my good friend, the friend who saved me in the camp, who helped me, to find out the organization who is going to take people for a boat fleeing out.
Well, during this period of time, as you're planning to go, were you working? Were you actually employed?
No.
So how are you eating? How are you surviving?
Well, we sell whatever we have available in the house, you see, for a living. Selling our chairs, our tables, our still good clothes, selling. Just keep selling one after another one. And I have known of families that because on the last thing that people can sell, the next thing is just to go in living in the street and to come to just actually this is my sister family selling things, and when the last resource you bump into the last resource, so her husband was still in the camp, so she split her children, sending this daughter to one family, splitting the family to live. Yes.
You find out that there are perhaps a dangerous way of getting out by way of the boats. What actually was the process? Did you have to pay to get on the boat?
Yeah.
So there were people.
Yeah, because we understand that we have to pay because nobody is going to give you a free lunch for getting to freedom, because they not only they have to spend, they have to pay, they have to take the risk of their life, their own life. So we have to pay as a contribution. Yes.
So what was the process of your getting your family out, and how was your mother and father with you as well?
No, actually, my father and mother got out before me. Yeah, because my father he was an official, a retired army officer, but after that he's involved in intelligence for the South Vietnam government. So he's on the top of the list. But the next thing is. Very good that the intelligence in the South of Vietnam, they are very professional. My father have been involved with that for years, and when they come in, my father, they have tricks too. That is professional education training, and he behave in such a way that they never know that he is the intelligence officer.
So you're gathering your wife and your children together for the day you're going to get onto the boat. Was it in the evening? Was it during the day? I mean, what was the actual process of going to this boat?
We took advantage of a holiday. That is we call it the day of the celebration for the dead people. Yeah, and when on these days people are moving around, see, so we take advantage of that kind of the peak of the moving around. So we mix into it, and let's go. We say, okay, let's go to the celebration. Let's go to the celebration. But actually, instead of going to celebration, we take a taxi and we went to the location of the boat.
I think it's interesting to note that you took advantage of the fact that people were allowed to gather in crowds, whereas the inference then is that when it's not a holiday, you weren't so easily to walk around. You'd be more conspicuous if you walked out in the street with your family going somewheres.
That's correct. Yeah, not crowd. Yeah, you can say a crowd, but actually people go into the temple. Yeah, a movement on the road, on the streets. You mix it into that movement, so you will be more or less hidden from their observation.
So the location was a dock? Was it a dock with a ship there, or?
It's a dock. Yes, it was a dock at night. We embark on the boat at night. I can see that some people just jump right into the river and they swim to the boat. And for us, because we have two small children, 4 more small children, so we have to take a dock, a bridge with a few boards of wood, and we try to go to the boat.
A gangplank, I think they call it, just planks, and then just a rope to hold on to like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Describe the boat for us.
The boat is just a fishing boat. Yeah, fishing boat. It's around I would say 90 feet and around 10 feet wide, 90 feet long.
Approximately how many people were with you?
Yeah, we were 400 people on it's nowadays is that I look into every time that I coming to a farm and I saw the chicken in a cage, I say that's us. Back then, that's completely like that. You see.
So you and your family are huddled together. You're completely packed in, so that everybody is just right next to each other.
Packed, yeah.
The smells and everything is all.
Everything. Yeah, actually, yes, if you want to pee or to solve any kind of personal needs, you say you have to do it on top of the other.
Wow. Were you able to get up and walk around?
You can walk around, but just like in a crowd, you have to move very slowly and ask for a space to put your foot in, and that is the way you move around.
How did you and your family, but also from your experience, your own looking around you, how did people eat? I mean, how did they survive the trip?
On their own, yes. People prepare on their own, or if they don't have food, that's fine. Yeah, they just need to drink. Most of the time, people prepare for food for the trip for 1 week, dry food, and most of all water. Mm-hmm.
What did you and your family bring?
Water and jam for sugar, for energy. You see, we have a small box. My wife prepare the fruit. She cut all kind of fruit, orange, lemon, whatsoever, and she boil it with sugar. So we mean to have a vitamin C and to have a sugar for the energy. And besides that one, so during the trip, each one sometime we take a spoon and give very, very, very low volume. See, give 1 spoon to this one, and for the morning, it's just like a bird distributing food to the nest. And we a bottle of water, the same thing. Very very, very restricted water. The whole thing is a plan to survive, not to eat. Yeah.
What kind of incidents did you witness during that week's trip? Were there storms? Were there any kind of altercations? Did you see people get agitated, or what was the experience like for that week?
Yes, luckily it is a peaceful, this is a very, very rare, a peaceful trip. Beside the challenge, physical challenge, nothing like turbulence or some kind of disorders on the trip. The only the striking event on that is one lady gave birth to a child, and my wife was a nurse. So they call her. Anybody on here know how to help her for a delivery? So my wife jumped out and helped her with a newborn baby, a girl. Mm-hmm.
Well, the next time that I have the honor of seeing your wife again, I am going to when I shake her hand, I'll have even more respect for her. That's wonderful that she did that.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
The whole week then, as you know, I'm sure you have studied or read about some of the experiences of other boat people where you were very fortunate, perhaps even blessed in that respect. There were turbulent storms, people drowned and all that. So did you know where you were going? Did you know the destination of where you were going?
Yes, we planned for it. We planned to go south or to Malaysia or to Indonesia. Yeah, we have our he was the navigator, was a former Navy officer. So he's good one. And during the trip, luckily, I don't know, this is something that there should be an intervention from high. The trip was peaceful. There's no storm. It's if we have a wave of 2 feet, the boat will be sinking. Yeah, because all I can see and look down the water, the where we are from the water is around 2 feet. That's it.
Yeah, I guess we kind of think of ships as these boats as being huge, but this is really just a bunch of people packed together very tightly, very close to the water. If any kind of damage occurred, you would have gone down, and there's no one to save you.
It will go down. No. Yes.
Yeah. So where did you actually arrive?
We arrived on a oil rig. Yes, on an oil rig, and sometimes people are human beings are mean to each other, but sometimes there are still good people out there. We unroll our flag for help SOS, and while approaching, we saw the rig, the oil rig, and we are approaching, and the people up there, they are very willing. They were willing to help us and provide us with the shelter and food. And from that point, yeah, I envision already the freedom. Yes, because the atmosphere, the human being environment, it's completely different. You treat the people with dignity, and most of the time, the Western people, they were educated with the human dignity.
So who were the people at the oil rig? You said the Westerners were there?
There were, I guess, maybe that the oil rig exploited, conducted by a company, Western company. But under the Westerners, they are the local people. They are Chinese. They are Malaysian. Yeah. But on top, it's the management were on Westerner. They very kind, very impressive in terms of human dignity, human rights.
Where did you go, or how did you get off the oil rig? Where did you go next? Did you get back onto the fishing boat? And
from there, as I say, it's freedom, because they give us food, they talk to us, they call us in to organize things. They call my wife in to say, oh, you are a nurse, so you are going to help us. They started organizing for us. Then the next step is somehow they communicate with inland in Malaysia, and we saw a big boat big boat coming out and pick up all of us to an island. The Pulo, the name of the island is Pulo Tanga. It's a good area to live. Mm-hmm.
Now, you weren't asked to pay for your
No,
way. They just
nothing.
picked you up and they brought you there.
Nothing. Yeah, everything is just a help. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
From the island, where did you go then?
From the
Palo.
Pulo Tanga,
Pulo,
you mean
yeah.
the island?
Yeah.
After that, when we were in the island, we are in contact with the United Nations Refugee Commissioner. So from that point, things will go effectively by itself, and the commissioner took care of connecting with the interviewing delegation from other countries, and mostly from Canada, from Australia, and on top of that is from the United States government. And there were criteria for being accepted into the United States. Most of the people who has a good explanation of a political asylum will be received by the United States government.
You know, I think it's a very rare glimpse into the actual process. You're invaluable in that you, unfortunately under these circumstances, but you can explain to us the whole process. So when you arrived there, you had the choice of Australia, you had the choice of United States. You chose the United States. You said, that's where I want to go.
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
You and your family. What was the actual process then? I mean, were you housed in a barracks and then go to an office and meet with somebody? I mean, what actually is the process that you went through?
On the island, we have shelters set up by the United Nations Refugee Commissioner. Sure, it's very simple, the very, very basic one. And we live there. We were provided with food from the same United Nations Commissioner. And every day, we have even set up a hospital. And I was involved as the General Secretary in order to take care of the life and the other activities of the people on the island. Then there will be delegation from countries who come in and then try to contact who wants to be interviewed, who wants it. So we set up lists. Okay, we set up lists that many people will accept to go to Australia, to go to Canada. And once we have this list for such or such a country, then the day that a specific country arrives, then we call all the people in for an interview. And in the interview, just like you and me, in the interview, there's an official from the United States government come in and call us, every one of us, and provide information. And they took the information. The first thing is, okay, whether you need an interpreter or you can speak English. So every time, sure, this is a kind of natural psychology. I come in and I start speaking English with the interviewer. So she feel a lady. She I can see her joy on it, her openness, and she asked for more things, just like what I was doing, whether I did any abroad studies at all, and I told her I said, yes, I want to attend the University of North Carolina also. So she feel a bridge right away. I say, oh, okay, that's good. And I saw her right now. She very, very, very personable individual, speaking very fluent in English or something. I know that that means that she accepts me. Yeah.
Now, this is completely surprise to me. You didn't tell me about North Carolina.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Yeah.
When was this? I mean, when did you go?
That is in 1973. Yes. Came to the United States for a program, a population program, and this is a contract of the university with our Department of Education. We come there as a group of 6 people. I'm the leader of the group in order to have the training in specific training in population education to be integrated in our curriculum. Yeah.
Okay. And how long did you stay there in the States?
For 6 months.
6 months, and
Yes.
then you returned back.
And I
Okay.
returned back.
So after the interview, what was the next step? What happened next?
What happened next is then you are on set. All you have to do is just to wait there, and one day they will have on the paper coming out, and if your name is on it, so you will be taken to the Kuala Lumpur, and you stay there for a week, and then for any necessary procedure, including the airplane ticket. And around a week, then the plane coming, we went to the airport and fly straight to the United States.
So where did you arrive in the United States?
Where?
Where?
Right straight in Grand Rapids of Michigan. I stay there. I have good friends, and first of all, because my parents were there, so we want to join them to rebuild our family and our life and the spiritual life most of all.
You know, I have found in my own experience that, as you know, I grew up out overseas as well. Americans, not all Americans, but certainly many Americans, don't really have an appreciation of what it's like to live in the United States of America. What was your first impression when you arrived on the shores of America now to become an American citizen?
We always saying to each other of us, you see, this we should be grateful, not only when we were fighting for the freedom in South Vietnam, the American were coming to our help, to our rescue. Sure, they cannot accomplish the job because of the game of the politics. In that politics, we always think of the influence of propaganda from the communism and from over the world propaganda that got some kind of heavyweight pressure on the peace activists. Now they know that they did a mistake back then. We just listen to Jane Fonda, who is the leader. Sure, we have next to Jane Fonda. I'm sorry to say, but we should tell provide the whole radar of things that is our Senator John Kerry. But after that, people in the United States are wonderful, and where we can find the wonder, I can say that those who believe in God, that is the core, the backbone of the morality and the culture of this country. It's great.
What were you able to get in the way of employment when you first arrived? I mean, you have a family to feed. It's not like you could just be supplied by the United Nations.
Again, regarding the approach for a living, we have more than one option. First, the social security will come into our help. Mm-hmm. Next is our friends, and next is the church. The church who volunteer to accept us. But our choice was I don't want to be a burden on the social security program, so I stay with the church. The church help us every month, everything every month. But after I think just a few months later, one member of the church found out a job for me at the Amway Corporation. Yes, I started on January. I came in November, and on January of the next year, I start my job with Amway, and I stay with it until my retirement. That is a great company. I start first as a custodian. When we make a change and try to create a new orientation in this country, I asked my wife, you think that you want me to go back to college for a better job as a professional, or to just accept this one? If you have the courage to help me, you will help with any job that you feel that you can do. And then I go to college, and then when I go to college, I will take care of the whole thing. You don't have to work anymore. But was afraid. She's a shy Vietnamese woman. They are shy. They are not used to get involved in society. So I have to accept the custodian job. And working as custodian, very heavy one. Next, my promotion is a custodian. Next is what they got? I forgot. Actually, next job is to handle the box and put it on a pattern. You see, it's very heavy one, but I went through it fine. And then while working hard on it, I try to attend class at night in a computer. And really, when I first time I finished the associate degree in data processing, I got a professional job at Amway, and I continue to work up to dig into it, and I stay on the job until my retirement. That is back in 2000.
You know, the thing that surprises me is that you had English skills, French skills, and Vietnamese. I'm surprised that there was no opportunities, not necessarily as a translator, but certainly to utilize that. The opportunity never arose at the time, huh?
No, because I'm just I love the new field of a computer. So I reserve all my time in research and reading into it. That is a very good point. As a translation, in terms of a translation activity, that is what I have been doing since I retired.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
And that cover my whole expertise. I'm glad that I could do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Since we live in the home of Amway, I must ask you, what was your experience with Amway like? What was the experience of working for Amway like?
A good company in terms of the treatment programs and training as well. It's a very good company. I'm grateful, and even that type of good heart, good image, not only restricted in the time when I was an employee, but even when I was a retiree. Right now they still provide me with benefits, and on top of the insurance benefit. And my wife has been the very heavy user of that package. I'm grateful to them. Mm-hmm.
Well, I am very grateful to you, sir.
Thank you.
As you know, my background growing up in Asia, I certainly cannot fully appreciate all that you went through, but at least the visuals that you've provided, I can see, I know, and I could smell, and I'm just very grateful that I've had the opportunity of meeting you. And you and I believe, you and I have many things to do in the future regarding the Vietnamese community here and the American community. So, sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.